Welcome back to round one of PHP and other natural disasters. Now that we have our developer environment set up, we can actually start doing something. Yes. Okay. So let's rock and roll. First thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new file. That file is going to be called Variables. So let's go ahead and do that. So clicked on File, New File, go to PHP, click PHP File, click Next, call that file Variables. That's how you spell it, Variables, and then click Finish. And that should create our PHP variable file. Go ahead and delete that little thing, that little block you saw. So just select it all and click Delete and Save. And we're just going to echo to the screen. Echo just means print to the screen. So we're going to echo variables lesson. And we'll do it all uppercase because we are yelling. So let's go right here, and if we type in variables.php, we have variables lesson right there. Bam. We're rocking and rolling. Okay, so I bet you're wondering, what is a variable? What the heck's going on here? Who am I? Okay, well, I can't answer all those questions, but I can answer what a variable is. What I want you to do is I want you to think of a variable as a box. And it's a box that you store something in. And what a variable has is three things. It has a name, a type, and a value. So let's go ahead and create a variable. And the first types of variables we're going to create are string variables. And we're going to see that. So when you create a variable in PHP, you always start it off with the $sign, money. And then you go ahead and then you type in the name you want. So $, and I'm going to call this variable, let's say my job. And we're going to store the value that we want. And those go in double quotes or single quotes. And I'm going to say farmer. So my job is a farmer. So let's review this for a second, right? See what's going on here. We're saying the name of this variable is $, my job. The value is the series of characters. And a series of characters in most programming languages is called a string. So just get used to that. Series of characters, numbers, it's called a string. And then the type is string. So that's basically what's going on. So what we're going to do is we're going to push this up a little bit, and we're going to debug it. And we're going to put a breakpoint right here so we can see this variable. And we're going to move this a little this way so we can get a better view. And we're going to click on this thing, Debug Project. And we should be debugging, hopefully. Let's see. And okay, so go ahead and with your, instead of typing index.php, type variables.php right here. And that should start debugging where we want it to, and it does. Bam. And we'll go to the debug console, and we'll click on variables. It looks like we're going to have to, it's not letting us log that one out. So that's okay. So what we'll do is we will create another statement right here so that we can see that variable. Or we'll create another echo statement right here. So we'll call this end variables lesson. And we'll put it right here. So this way we'll be able to see the variable when we debug. This usually is not going to be a problem for you guys, just to let you know. So go ahead and cancel that. That'll end the debug session. And let's go ahead and start it up again. And we have the hello world. So go ahead and change the index.php. That's what I'm doing right here, to variables.php. And it's debugging, and it stopped right there, and we can see the variable my job. And NetBeans has this little cool output thing. So you can see my job, it's a string variable, and its value is farmer. So we have the name, which is my job, the type, which is a string, and the variable's value, which is farmer. And what this does is, the reason I use the box analogy is that we are storing in a box the value farmer. And that box knows its type and has a name, which we use to reference the value that is in that box. So if I want to echo, right, out, or I want to use what's in the box, what's in the variable, my job, I just reference the name of the variable, my job. And let's go ahead and X out of this. We don't really need Xdebug anymore, so we'll just use Chrome. You can use Firefox if you want. And you can see it echoes out farmer and then end variable. Let's make this a little bit prettier. And we're going to do that by echoing out some VRs. That just means break line. That's just some HTML. And I'll just make the output look a little prettier. So go ahead and put that right there and right there. And it echoes out farmer, which is a string variable. This is very, very important. So just to reiterate, and I know I'm repeating myself over and over again, but the reason is I want it to sink in. Name of the variable, value of the variable, right? All variables in PHP start with a $sign. We use the equal sign to tell what the name of the variable is, and the type is inferred, meaning that the PHP interpreter basically knows that this is a string type. And let me just show you not only in Xdebug but also on the screen what that looks like as well. So we're using a function called vardump, and you see it's string and it's got a value of farmer. And notice that we referenced that variable or got the value of that variable by using its name. So these are just critical things. So what I want you to do right now is create 5 string variables and var dump them to the screen. And the way you var dump is you just say var dump, and then you use this var underscore dump function, and we'll learn about functions later, but that's what it's called. And a function is just a block of code that executes. And then in parentheses you put the value, you put the variable name that you want to dump out to the screen. So I'm going to plug in my computer, and I'm going to have 5 variables up, and when I get back I want to see your 5 variables up, and then we're going to go through a few other variable types, and there'll be some more homework at the end, and I'm also going to explain what the heck these things are too. Ooh, scary. Okay, don't worry, we'll be back. Okay, I have my 5 variable names. It's okay if yours are different. There's no, just as long as they work and you're var dumping them to the screen. That's really the name of the game here. So notice the variable name is Tom's friend, and the value is Bill, and the type is a string. Same thing here. So what's the variable name for this one, the one I'm under? 5 seconds. Tom mom name, and it equals what? Ooh, I gave that one away. Ashley. Okay, so what is this part of the variable? I'll give you 5 seconds. The one I'm over. That'd be the value part of the variable. What's the name? This part right here. Tom's Ann. So remember, name, so a variable has 3 things: name, value, and type. And the type here is inferred by the value, meaning that the PHP interpreter that compiles the PHP basically says, okay, based on the value, I'm going to guess the type. Some people, there's a big debate whether this is a good thing or not. A lot of languages make you put in the type, like Java and C# and those sort of languages, but we won't worry about those right now. So name, value, type. And I also promised I'd go over these. These are comments, and what a comment is is it's something that it's only for people. In other words, the interpreter ignores it, but it's just little notes that you can leave for your code. So I can say do / variables have, and then under here name, type, and value. But let's say you don't want to do a / every time. You can also do a multi-line comment, which is like this. So it has a /* and a star /. And we can take all this and we can cut that and put that in our multi-line and get rid of these annoying /. So if you only have one thing you want to comment, just use the 2 /. If you have 2 things you want to comment, want to comment things on a multiple line, or you want to write a paragraph, go ahead and use the multi-line comment. So I'm going to do single line comment right here. Okay. So we learned about comments and we learned about variables, but we've only learned about one type of variable, a string variable. Let's learn about, we'll put another comment here called string variable. Let's learn about another cool type of variable, which is called a number, which is called a Boolean variable. So is Tom awesome? So we can just keep on picking on Tom, and we're going to set that to true. And what's going on here? Well, true in PHP is what's called a constant, and a constant is a value that cannot change. So once you set the variable's value, a constant value, it cannot change, and that's the only difference between a constant and a variable. And they're defined a little differently too. We'll go over constants a little later, but basically, a Boolean is a type of variable that can either be only true or false. So in other words, is Tom awesome? That's a Boolean variable, and that equals true. So the value is true, but there's only 2 possibilities, true or false. And let's go ahead and var dump that to the screen. Is Tom awesome? So let's go back up here, and we can kind of see what the output looks like before that. And if we var dump, it's a Boolean and it's true. So that's Boolean variables. So go ahead and stop this video. I want you to create 3 Boolean variables, and they can be whatever you want. You don't have to use Tom. Go ahead and use your imagination. One thing I am going to point out too, notice that my variable names are camel cased. And what does that mean? It means the first letter is lowercase, and then the next word is uppercase. So first word lowercase, next word is uppercase, and this is called camel case. And this is a very common naming convention for variables, and I would recommend you start using it, but you don't have to. The other thing I want to mention about variables before you start also is that variables are case sensitive. So if I do this, there's going to be an error because Tom friend does not equal this. So let's go ahead and see what happens. Should be an error. Yep. So it's saying there's an undefined variable Tom friend. So notice that PHP is case sensitive, meaning that this variable and this variable are not equal. So that's just an important point to mention. Most languages that I've messed with are indeed case sensitive. There's a few that are not. We're not going to go over that right now. So let's go ahead and pause this video. Give me 3 Boolean variables. When we get back, we're going to go over the other types of variables, and then we'll call it quits for this video. Okay, I got my 3 variables. I guess I already created one. Well, you get the picture. You can create a third one if you want. So has Tom done his homework? That's false. And does Tom like Batman? That's true. So the other potential value is false. I like to keep mine lowercase. You can uppercase these if you want, but most of the code I've seen has been lowercase, so I would keep yours lowercase as well. And we're going to add a comment here, a single line comment called Boolean, because these are Boolean variables. So we're going to do that, and let's go ahead and compile. I fixed the thing too, so that's why we're no longer getting that error. So the next type of variable I want you to create are called floating point. We're called integer variables. So we're going to say integer variables. So we're going to say Tom's age, and let's say that's 12, right? So we're going to var dump Tom's age. Let's go ahead and see what happens. And it's an integer and it's 12. So integers are whole numbers. Now if I change this to 12.5, it's going to say it's a float, and floats are not whole numbers. They have a floating point, and the floating point is just that decimal point right here. So let's go ahead and see that. That's a float. Now in PHP, you don't really have to worry about floats versus integers, but they do exist. So we're going to keep this integer, and then we're going to create another variable called a float variable, and we're going to say miles from home, and we're going to say that's 33.12 something. We're going to var dump that. Really, if you ask me, there should only be one variable type for numbers, and that should be a number. But this harkens back to the days when memory was very scarce, so that's why they did that. So an integer will take up less memory than miles from home. Today, it doesn't really matter because memory is a lot cheaper, to say the least. So the age is 12, and then this is 33 miles. So that's our basic lesson in variables. The last thing I want to go over is that variables can change in PHP, and that's why they're called variables, because they can vary. So the value of a PHP variable can change. So if I say Tom's age, if I reference that, and let's say I set that equal to 14, and then I var dump Tom's age, that will not work because I didn't put the S, but that will change to 14. So you can see it was 12 and now it's 14. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, I can say is Tom awesome, and I can change that to 22. Notice it was a Boolean variable, and now I'm changing it to a number variable. So PHP will do this for you automatically. A lot of languages will not. A lot of languages will bulk at this, and I don't like doing this. This is a bad idea, but PHP takes care of types for you, so try not to do this. But that's what it is. So your homework is just to create me like 5, not just 10 number variables, and go ahead and change up the values of these variables as well. In our next lesson, we're going to go over just changing up variables. So that's going to be our next lesson, is like how we change up variables, how we add two variables together, how we add two string variables together. That's called concatenation. That's a big word for meaning adding string variables together. And remember, string just means a series of numbers and letters, so don't freak out. I wish I had my big word alert so I could plop those up on the screen. I don't. I'd be stealing from another guy, unfortunately, so I'm not going to do that. But yeah, so we're going to get into that in our next lesson. So go ahead and just practice, play around with this, and in our next lesson we're going to do messing around with variables that vary. So that'll be our next lesson. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you soon.